Race is a lie, a ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct. Yes, yeah. It started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. He didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race. So stop fighting your father and dismantle the disease. If a lawyer wrote the code, the architect holds the keys. What was manufactured can be dismantled.
Great Wednesday. Welcome to the Fully Human Trinity podcast. I'm your host, King, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jess-Esther and Mike Murphy. How you all doing today?
Great. Thank you, King.
Yeah, doing great.
So, as we like to get things started with our podcast, kind of set the state, let our listening audience know where we're vibrating at, as well as let each other know what our check-ins are. So we go through our check-in by saying what our spiritual energy number is between 0 being life sucks and 10 being life is awesome in the moment right now as we get started. And so with that being said, Mike, what's your spiritual energy number?
I'd say I'm about an 8 today.
Okay, excellent. Jess, what about you?
I'm vibrating at a 10. Definitely feeling the love and gratitude today.
I join you at a 10. I'm feeling at the level of gratitude. And again, each time I do the check-in, I want to say this for our listening audience that may be new to our show, that the reason we do this is it sets the tone of what kind of conversation you're going to hear from us. And if we're vibrating at 8 or above, we're going to be speaking from abundance and love energy and living in a state of gratitude. And what keeps us, at least speaking for myself, keeps me at a 10 is when I go through my list of things I'm grateful for. And that's my life, my health, ability to see, hear, breathe, and have sound mind, just to name a few. And once I go through my full list, I find it impossible to be less than a 10. And so that's where that number comes from. So I just wanted to share again with our listening audience where that number derives from and the purpose of that number. And, you know, one of the things that it really helps me see, and I'm learning this so much now that I'm kind of finished my 180-day journey, and I'm beginning to interact more with my broader network that I was building with before I started it, and before I really got into leaning hard into the fully human movement, it's just how people who may be spiritually enlightened, they may be triple bottom line, they may believe in a higher purpose, conscious capitalists, but what I've learned is that they're still missing some core frameworks as far as how they go about moving in their identity, as well as what governs who they are and their behaviors. And so with that being said, I wanted to create that for myself. Was first the task was becoming fully human, was a decision to make, and then proclaiming it. And then of course, being fully human is based on 4 agreements, being number 1, that energy is everything and everything is energy. As Einstein says, it's physics, not my opinion. Number 2, energy is in a constant state of motion. It's either increase or a decrease. Number 3, as fully human leaders, we focus on the increase. Even though we will be a decrease at times, we're human, that happens. But our true north is the increase. And then agreement number 4 is we're fully human. That's how we identify, not by our race, our gender, our sexual orientation, our country, our ethnicity, our wombs, our careers, any of those other things that see us as other from one another. Is fully human. All those other things I described are descriptions of who we are, but they're not the lens that we look at life through. And so once you make the choice to become fully human, and you make that agreement of those 4 agreements, the next thing is how do you sustain being fully human? So it's not a destination, it's a journey. And life is the journey of being fully human every single day. So I came up with 6 pillars that I feel that best capture what I feel is keeping me on the fully human pathway and holding me accountable to continuing to grow and be fully human or become fully human along this journey. And so the first pillar, we want to really break it down through your journey, Mike, and your journey, Jess, and your lives as that we've gone forth. And so our first pillar is identity. And so we want to talk about identity. And I know we talked about that before, kind of in depth on the show, but we're going to go through each pillar in this particular show. And what I want to start off with identity is, again, I want to start with you, Mike, first, is talk about, as I read your book, as I got more to understand about you as an individual, I'm always curious to know, what was a person's origin story? I guess that comes from my fascinating with comic books and Marvel, and how they always got to create a character, and then they got to get a character's origin story, how they became Spider-Man or Batman. So I'm curious, Mike, how you became who you are, and talk a little bit about your journey, because I know it was a rocky one to get things started, being born into an Irish Catholic family, and with that as your initial identity. And so I want to give you an opportunity to kind of talk through that and what led to who you are now as an individual.
Yeah, it's interesting, not only the family that we're born into, but also the environment, like the country, the religion. It's like, I look at my life and I go, if I had been born, say, in Palestine or China, it would be a whole different set of programming. And I just happened to be born here. Why? I don't know. Okay. And I don't think it's my first incarnation life, but I was born into, an alcoholic father, a mother that was somewhat controlled by him. I was the oldest of 5, but she had 8 full-term pregnancies. So, as the oldest from, my brother came along when I was 2. And so from like 2 to 12, my mother was always pregnant, and 3 of the children died at birth and 5 lived. So you're subject to that programming. My father grew up with 2 alcoholic parents. So my father never knew love, definitely never knew unconditional love. And alcohol was the salve that healed the wound that allowed him to function until the alcohol turned on him, and he became pretty much went from a very successful person to almost a Skid Row type alcoholic, and then spent the last 40 years of his life helping other people go through alcoholism. So I have that as a role model. I have my mother as a role model, that my father traveled every other week. So when he was gone, I was the man of the house. My mother and I were like best friends. We had a very normal existence. I was into sports because I grew up in America, and baseball and all that stuff. It was different back then in the 60s. It was a different type of life and times, and it was simple. But then my father would come home. She would pick him up at the airport Friday night. They go out and get drunk. They're drunk on Saturday. They're drunk on Sunday. And then the next week he's home. So instead of having dinner at 6 p.m. every night and me being the head of the household, now we're having dinner at 8 after they drank martinis for 2 hours, and it's chaos. And God forbid you spill your milk at the table, all hell would break loose, right? So, and as being the oldest of 5, I felt somewhat responsible for my brothers and sisters until I rebelled and left home at 14. And so that's part of the programming. There's still parts of that programming that still exist inside my consciousness and affect certain decisions or habits or things like that. And it's just understanding that. It's understanding that who we are and getting comfortable with who we are, the light and the shadow, getting clear of all the stuff that understanding the stuff that no longer serves us, and how to eliminate that and how to replace it with good habits that serve us, and thoughts and processes and beliefs. And the thing is that people don't realize that they can become anything they want. They just have to change the way they see themselves, the way they see the world, the way they think about them. Two things come to mind. One, Tony Robbins says, hey, just find somebody that you want to be like and model them. He said, this Tony Robbins, that's not even his real name, Tony Robbins. He said, I created this guy. Okay. That's what I wanted to become. I became it. Okay. And I saw other people that were like that, and I modeled them. And then Dr. Joe Dispenza says, if you want to change your personal reality, which is what? Your life. Okay. you need to change your personality. What's your personality? It's what you think, what you believe, what you say, how you act, what you do. And so you can always change if you're not satisfied and you're not happy. And in my life, I mean, I'm constantly changing and evolving and taking on new information and new reference points so that I can become the best version of myself in spite of all these obstacles that I experience. And the world is a very complicated place today, and it's very confusing. And it's very important that we're just grounded and we go back to simplicity, I believe. It's gotten way too fast, way too complicated. And where is the truth? And the truth is right here. So we need to close our eyes. We need to ground to Mother Earth. We need to sit in the sun, and we need to go inside and say, okay, who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? What am I becoming? And what is most important to me to become the best version of myself and to have the life of my dreams? And it's easy to get off that path. So it's super important that we're consistent every morning with how we start our day, with gratitude and prayer and contemplation and meditation, whatever it is for you. Maybe it's just going for a long walk in the sun. Whatever it is, we need to start the day properly and then just keep going through it and have a goal, a mission, intention, and just try to stay on the path. And at the same time, we need to find some relaxation. We need to find good nutrition. We need to have good friends. We need to have good family. We need to have love. So life is complicated. And to really live it. I mean, how many people are just fully living their lives, just going for it 100%, or get stuck in a rut? You know, I do a lot of walking in the town I'm living in now, back in America. I've been here for a few weeks now. So I do a lot of walking around, and you notice people, and you could see that, you know, not everybody's alive, but very few are living, you know, really just living. And because why? Because there's so much fear populating the place nowadays. Fear of the economy, fear of our health, fear of these wars, fear of this administration. You know, it's so funny to me how people get so triggered by this current administration, and so many people got triggered by the previous administration. Listen, there's nothing we can do about that. We need to pray for that. Okay. And if you want to go into public service, go into public service, but don't complain about it. Okay. Either just fix it or ignore it. But complaining about it is total waste of time. So I think we need to just get really focused on who we are, what we want to be, and just do it, as Nike would say.
Absolutely. I completely concur with that. All that, what you said, Mike, I think is spot on. And I think a lot of that stems from our identity and how people can't let that go. And because they identify by their political party, and then they become a part of that political party within their argument, within their perspective, within their behaviors. And that, to me, is where things get derailed. And I want to bring Jess into this conversation because, Jess, I always find you to be fascinating, because I look at maybe 3 major identity changes in my life. 2 for sure, 3 if I give myself enough deep thought. But I know you've gone through at least 4 or 5 in your life. And I just want to give you an opportunity to talk about, if you want to share your perspective on what Mike said, as well as your own identity changes in your life for you to arrive where you are, the person you are today.
Yeah, I mean, Mike opened it up brilliantly, just talking about the environment that we're born into. And that's our first identity. It really just shapes who we are. And my first identity was being a child of mother. And so it really created this yearning for me to find like nurturing, and to find love, and to find gentleness. And then, you know, we moved a little further into the conversation about filling up your own cup, going for a walk, taking things slow. I think the combination between realizing the environment that isn't aligned and then having the wherewithal to walk is a beautiful combination, because it's that process, what I call my regulation rhythm, that allows me to be safe within any environment. But then it's like, that's where my heart, head, and soul come into alignment, where then I can make a decision. Like, it's okay there's diversity or polarity in the world. It's totally okay. And I'm going to normalize that that's the condition. That's the conditional love that's just here. It's like what is. And through these identity changes, I'm learning consistently that I can be my most natural self, my most authentic self without an identity when I really step into that movement, that walking, that regulated rhythm where I'm part of nature, where I'm part of breathing the air and being one of the animals that's in the forest. And so it's not really to shift your identity. It's very simple, you know, the awareness of your environment and shifting the body, moving forward. But it is not pretty. It's simple, but it's not easy. And so to me, it looks like a bunch of wreckages that when I'm doing that rhythm and I'm walking through life, like, oh, this environment isn't working for me. Now I'm shedding that environment, and that includes my behavior, and that includes my identity of who I thought I was in that environment. So yeah, I've become quite skilled at this transition of like, this identity no longer fits, this environment no longer fits. But what is consistent, what is timeless through that is my alignment, my own inner safety, my own clarity about how to move forward. I really support people through transitions while I continue to transition. And what I'm finding is that it's very normal for humans to go through change and for the world to go through change. What's not normal is to do that alone or to go into isolation and think like, now I fucked up again. Now I'm in the cellar. Now I can't create again because I fucked it up. And now I'm like sitting in this identity of being fully human of like, I can't fuck it up. We just can like keep leaning in and keep trying something new and like keep throwing new spaghetti at the wall, because that's what this is about. We can just keep learning. But I think the biggest thing is for me to step into a new identity that's not limited, that's not conditional. And to give myself this unconditional love means now I can create environments that are unconditionally loving as well.
King, allow me to add one thing.
I hope that answers the question.
Because
go ahead, Mike.
The truth is we're not our identity. Okay. I have many identities. I can go over to this meeting over here and have this identity. I can go over here, be a grandfather over here. I can be a father over here. But I bought this t-shirt at a Byron Katie event that says, who would you be without your story? Okay. Which is your identity. Your story is your identity, and it's constantly changing and evolving. But we're not our identity. We're not our story. We are eternal, timeless consciousness. We are spirit. Okay. And we're just free. And when we can lose the identity and we can lose all that and just realize who we really are, that we are spirit, we are eternal, timeless consciousness, and we're energy. Okay, vibrating at a certain frequency, and we get to control the frequency, and we control the frequency by what we think, what we feel, what we do. And so the higher the frequency, the better you feel and the freer that you are. But that's really, that's all that's going on here. And so lose the identity and be free, because the identity is a burden.
Absolutely. And Mike, you said some key things there. I want to piggyback on that because, you know, you said before in a previous discussion that everything starts with your internal work, understanding who you are first. And I agree that ultimately our identity is to be energy, to be identityless. I put the fully human there now as a pathway, primarily because I believe that so many people are conditioned to be an identity. They have to at least let go of that first, and then the fully human becomes the first step, then to eventually becoming free, as you say. Then we don't look at any identity at all. And I think that so many people are triggered by their forced identity that's placed upon them by the environment they brought in, their cultural givens, their parents, society, telling us our gender and all these things, and then people accepting that and then be willing to either kill or die based on that what someone else gave them. So I agree with you 100% that the ultimate goal, and that's going to be our next pillar, the growth mindset, is constantly growing to the point where we can become first fully human and then transcend beyond that and emerge beyond that into our natural energy selves that we really are. And I advocate that we at least function in that place right now until we can evolve to that level of thinking and behaving.
Yeah.
You know, we're spirit and we come from singularity. And now we find ourselves in an animal body living in a 3D physical reality where there's duality, right? And so that's confusing at first. And I think the whole purpose of this experience, this journey, is to remember that where.
Oh, did we lose him?
We lost Mike. Yes, we have some technical challenges right now.
We're having some tech today.
So Jess, you said when you had something you wanted to share in there.
Yeah, I did completely until Mike dropped out. But yeah, I was just thinking of the identity shift is really a frequency shift. And when Mike talks about something being timeless, like your story being your identity, and then also creating an identity that's timeless, shifts your story. And so when I opened up, I said, I had the identity of being motherless. I don't have that identity anymore. I am so mothered. So like the story changes as the frequency shifts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Michael, you got cut off. Did you want to add anything else before we?
Let me just add one thing that came to mind is that a long time ago, I don't know, 20 years or so, I saw a movie called The Hurricane. And it was a guy, a fighter that was wrongly convicted and spent like 17 years in prison, right? And so what did he learn? You know, and he wasn't guilty of the crime. And so he was an innocent man sentenced to a long time in prison, lifetime, and he got out eventually after 17 years. But what he learned in there was to let go of all this and to get free inside. And that's what I'm trying to do with my life is I want to be free of all this. Okay. I just want to be an observer and my only role is to observe and to give compassion where I see suffering. And that would be total freedom. And where you don't need medications, you don't need much food, you just need some water, some minerals, some breath, and be free of all this, you know, everything here, okay? And to find total peace and just be on the journey of to give love and compassion for those that are suffering and to limit your needs and desires, especially your desires. We have certain needs, right? But to get rid of the desires that weigh us down, that we think are giving us pleasure, okay? And it's really not, because when we seek pleasure, it eventually leads to pain. And when we can just get peace and not be seeking desire and having our needs met and coming from a place of love and service and compassion, that would be total freedom for me.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Wow. That's a mic drop on that. And Mike, you said some very important things, and I definitely in alignment with, which is why I enjoy building with you and why I wanted to connect with you originally when I came to Mountains of Hope. But I want to share with you all a video that's appeared in my timeline because I trained my algorithm to give me these type of informational videos that are in line with what I'm studying. So I want to share this with you because I found this one to be really insightful what this gentleman is saying, and I want to get your thoughts on what he's saying as well, because he's going to encompass a lot of things that we talked about. So
I can't hear it.
You can't hear it? Can you hear it, Mike?
No.
That's not good. 1 second. Try it again.
Yeah. We were working on this earlier in Zoom, and there's a cute little button. There we go.
Okay, so let me go back. Start it from scratch.
All right.
black contemplative splendors of self-doubt. How do you know that you're on your path? Because it disappears. That's how you know. How do you know that you're really doing something radical? Because you can't see where you're going. That's how you know. But everything you have lent on for your identity has gone. And so you are going to enter the black contemplative splendors of self-doubt at the same time as you're setting out on this radical new path. So you need to know how you know where you are. Poetry shows how incredibly precise it is in there. It was a story that would be told to a young boy or girl that would ask the question, what do I do when I'm lost in the forest? Here's the answer that the elder gives. You can feel from this how precise the teaching is. The elder says, stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Stand still. What do I do when I'm lost in the forest? Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. Listen. The forest breathes. It whispers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. See, what's astonishing about that poem is you can say, there are three things in this poem, you see, that are absolutely clear. First of all, the elder says, you cannot sleepwalk your way into your destiny. You must wake up and pay attention. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. You must pay attention. Second stage is that in this teaching from the elder is this incredible feeling of silence. That unless you have this silence in your life, and you feel the silence in the poem, where it says, if you leave it, you may come back again, saying, here. And I think what the elder is saying there is that if you pay real attention, unless you have silence, an ability for silence in your body to do that, then you will get too frightened. Because all the voices inside you will drown out any real change. You have 100 reasons not to make any real change, you see. And you've got all the voices and all the reasons not to do it. And so the ability for profound silence is being called on here. And then that attention can flower into something else.
The poem seems to be attempting to awaken a kind of intuitive sense.
That's right. And then this amazing last line, the forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. Yeah. How do you know?
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's profound. I mean, that's what I was trying to say myself, is that it's inside is the silence. Okay, we got to get out of the head, and we got to get into the heart. It was where who we truly are. Our true essence is here, and that is a silence that will teach you, and that will guide you, and that will show you. And all we have to do is ask for the wisdom. We already know. Okay, we just got to ask, and we will be reminded of why we're here and what the journey is about. And that I love that because just stand still and be present, and the answers will come. There's energy everywhere, okay? And we're not creating the energy. Energy has never been created, nor can it never be destroyed, and we are energy. So therefore, we were never born, we can never die, and it's just tapping into that powerful energy and raising the vibration frequency of that. Like stars vibrated just as most beautiful frequency, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what we need to tap into, that type of energy, that light energy, that pure light frequency of love and peace and presence and consciousness.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling the call from the trees, and I think I have for a while. I actually have a tattoo of a tree of life on my chest that I got, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. And when I showed it to my friend Nina, who I became her death doula, she was a very special friend of mine who actually shared the vision of Mountains of Hope with me. And as I first showed her that tattoo, what she said to me was the forest was calling. and she knew, she had that like very intuitive knowing of like, go stand in silence with the forest. Like there's nothing else for you to be doing right now. And I'm just so excited because this connection that we have has brought me into the forest deeply, and I'm getting ready to go back to the forest. And so it resonated so much with like the call of the forest, the call of the tree. Like, you know, we often think that we're the ones observing, and that, you know, this whole world and everything in the outer reflection is like our own understanding and our own rationale and our own awareness and reasons and all of it from this I perspective. But when you really open up to the oneness perspective, you can see it's all looking right back, and that there's like a relationship that happens in the breathe in, breathe out. And so, yeah, thank you for that video. It's so rich, and I could keep going all day about it.
Two days ago, I was on my walk and I started looking at the trees, thinking about the trees. You know, the trees are working very, very hard, but you would never know that because there's so much peace. And I was thinking that how much greater evolved they are than humanity, than the human animal here. Okay. And that how they really serve this place called Earth. Right. And you know, you can actually tap into a tree and charge your cell phone. These trees are giving out electricity. It's an electromagnetic world that we live in, right? And so there's so much going on here that we don't even pay attention to realize. Even in our body, you know, 50 trillion cells, each cell doing 100,000 different mechanisms every second. Think of that intelligence that is just operating the body. And then look at all these trees and all this intelligence around us. And here we are doing all this stupid shit. It's enough to really question humanity.
Absolutely. And to your point, you know, I want to shift now into the next pillar, growth mindset. And a lot was said that I really wanted to talk about, but I definitely want to continue to move forward. And that is the voices in our head. Well, that was a key thing I got out of that video for myself, because I've been writing about that for the 6 months and putting myself on a 180-day journey to reprogram those voices instead of trying to stop them, reprogram them. So when they are saying things, they're saying things that are positive and uplifting. And in doing so, my goal was, how do I maintain my growth mindset? Because we talked about identity, and now we're shifting to, because you can say you're fully human. And Jess, you even sent me a link yesterday. There's another website saying fully human is different than the message we're saying. So the fully human is just a matter of words. It's how do you sustain that so other people see that? I used to get in arguments with people, and I'm not picking any particular religion. Someone would say they was a Christian, and they would say, because I'm a Christian, et cetera, et cetera. And I would always say to myself, well, if you really believed in what you're saying, I would see that, and you would have to tell me you're a Christian. See what you're exhibiting based on your behaviors. And that's what these other the six pillars of being fully human are. So the growth mindset for me is realizing how much I don't know and how much more I need to learn. And so now I want to bring that conversation back to you all and look at it from a context of your growth mindset, starting off with you, Mike, and asking, as you went through your journey, because again, to me, you have a fascinating journey. You started off, you really are the what I would say, I'm sure any political party would love to use your story as the American dream. I mean, he's a dishwasher at 15, you know, and so you owner of the restaurant by the time you're 24. I mean, so who does that? And then you show that you can continue to grow your business by owning multiple automotive dealerships along the way, and then having a day off for apprenticeship. So you've really shown this ability to be growth-minded throughout your entire life, throughout your entire journey. So I want to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about what guides you to be growth-minded, what started that first, and then what sustains you, and how do you use, and what do you do daily now to continue to be growth-minded at this stage in your life as well?
Well, I would say there were two main things that happened in my life. One when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, my dad was watching a baseball game, drinking a beer, and he said, "Hey, go clean the garage." And I didn't really want to clean the garage. I wanted to watch the baseball game. So I went out and I did a half-assed job. And then I went back in. He goes, the garage clean. I go, yeah. He goes, let me inspect it. He goes out and he goes, this is bullshit. He takes the broom, he breaks it over his knee, throws it across the wall. If you're going to do something, do it right or don't do it at all. And that work ethic stuck with me and really helped me in every job I ever had. I always gave more than they expected. I gave more than what they were paying. And the other thing was meeting Doug Fitzgerald in the January of 1982, that really taught me the power of intention. And there's no difference between imagination and reality. Whatever you can imagine, you can create. And then he taught me how to write it as if it already exists, and then to record it, and then to listen to it every morning and every night. And that process, which I now call the creation frequency, was the greatest gift anybody ever gave me. I went from sitting in a 12-step program, 60 grand in debt, with no future, divorce, with 2-year-old, totally lost person, can't stay off drugs, alcohol. And by using that concept, I created everything I wanted in my life, and I manifested everything that I needed and wanted. So with that said, I'm going to answer the door real quick and let a guy in my house, and then I'll be right back.
It's just a really good example of what I was saying earlier, where there's an environment and there's something misaligned in the environment. And then there's this like breaking apart and then an identity change. I think we're just coming to this point of being through enough identity changes that what I'm realizing is that becoming more fully human is not an end destination. And that the more I can not have an identity and just be my authentic, natural self, that is me being fully human. But you're right, like just like the Christian, like I don't need to identify it. I don't need to label it. It's almost like the minute that you do create the label, now you've created another construct, another condition. So I like how it's like, how we've reframed it of like, I am fully human, to I'm becoming more fully human. I'm continuing to evolve. There is no end destination, and we're all in this learning this together.
Absolutely. And to both your points, I believe from my experience that when you question your identity, that usually comes from the storm that makes you question who am I? And what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Because what I've done thus far has led me here, and I have to change that. Then that's what creates a growth mindset, that you have to be willing to realize what I don't know. And what I've been taught all these years is wrong. Like being born in my identity at that time of seeing myself through the lens of my race and saying to myself, I'm a black man. And then what you do with that is you also take on the identity of the victim mindset, because now you've been told that everything's been done to you because of that. So now you got to carry that weight through everything you live and everybody you interact with. Are they racist? Was that racist? And you're always constantly evaluating that. You can imagine the energy drain it does for your creativity, because you're not using your thoughts to be creative and generative. You're using your thoughts to have this war in your skull about trying to create stories and narratives that might not necessarily be there. And so for me, letting that go was so freeing, as Mike talked about, freeing. And that's an interesting word, because I've been looking and studying what does freeing mean. And freeing for me was being able to use my growth mindset and continuing to say, how do I program my mind so that it serves me first and foremost, and I can serve others? Because if I'm constantly being triggered by different identities that I have within my shadow, then I'm not going to be able to be at my best and my optimal level. And seeing myself as in the fourth quarter of my life, I want to be optimal. And so what I wanted to do is go into our musical break now. But I wanted to set the context by saying it is through this growth mindset that allowed me to find, I liken to say, the Quincy Jones in me to be a producer of these frequency signals that I use primarily to reprogram my mind on a daily basis. But this is one of the first ones that I did, and this was my story. I've shared with you the Mountains of Hope story, God is Tears. This is my story of my personal wreckage, that I use to kind of catapult everything else that came after these other frequency signals. So with that being said, I'm going to share with you what I call my Baltimore tribute.
All right.
So then we'll build on the other side.
This is not music. Gratitude for feeling this. This is a frequency. I wrote every word. I'm the architect of the frequency. The AI is the instrument. I am not trying to fool you. My intent is to move you. This is my frequency signal for human emergence. King. Recognition detected. I've been through the fire, I've been through the storm. Baltimore wreckage was just a place I was reborn. Yeah, I am a 500 million asset, not a tenant in your game. I've reclaimed my source code. I've reclaimed my name. Yeah, I come from a place where the signals were scrambled and cold. 30 years a tenant doing exactly what I was told. I played the role, mastered the books, and I mined every bit of data. Trying to engineer a now that only paid off for later. Baltimore hit like a thunderstorm, lightning breaking the sky. But it was just nitrogen for the soil, a reason for the king to rise. I stopped the pursuit, stopped chasing that carrot on a stick. Realized the construct was a virus that made the whole spirit sick. They call me Trouble Man, but I'm the architect of the free. Vibrating at 500 hertz for the whole world to see. Yeah, I'm moving with intent, I'm governed by the law of service. Yeah. The construct's failing now and I can see they're getting nervous. Yeah, think and grow free. Yeah, it's the math of love energy. The bridge only holds when you're standing right here with me. Yeah, $33, 33 people, 33 sparks of light. That's the frequency we need to make the love energy bright. I'm not a patient seeking pills for a spiritual short circuit. I'm an engineer of the soul and I know exactly how to work it. Physical, mental, spiritual, calibrating every single muscle. Unconditional love is the only power that can end the hustle. I am the student and the teacher, alchemizing wreckage into gold. The truest definition of identity is finally taking hold. We are a chain, unbreakable, sovereign and true. I can't be who I ought to be unless I'm rising up with you. Surrender is strength, stillness is the ground where we stand. The law of service is our intent, healing the soul of the land. They call me Trouble Man, but I'm the architect of the free. Vibrating at 500 hertz for the whole world to see. I'm moving with intent, I'm governed by the law of service. Think and grow free. It's the math of love energy. I'm speaking from a place of knowing, from the future of your potential. Move from the tenant tax to the owned infrastructure of the soul. The law of service is calling. 33 people, 33 sparks. Reclaim your source code and step out of the dark. This is what it means to be fully human. I'm broadcasting my signal. Are you picking up?
Nice.
Quick question. Why 500 hertz?
That's a great question, Mike. 500 hertz is based off utilizing David Hawkins' map of consciousness. So he came up with a way of putting a numeric value to different thoughts of energy. And thoughts like greed, selfishness, anger are vibrating at 20 to 30 or 40 low vibrational thoughts. Seeking and love energy is 500 hertz, where you look at all the deities, such as you look at whether it's Jesus, whether it's Buddha, whether it's Allah, Muhammad, they were all vibrating at 1,000. And so most people operate at 300 hertz, which is willingness, acceptance. And so my goal was to get to 500 hertz of love energy and raise my vibration to that. So that's always been my goal through the law service.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And in order to do that, you really had to release the construct of transactional relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was what the whole essence of the 6-month journey was about. It was about getting to the point where I no longer seek to do transactions, which I believe if you have to sell something to someone, it's an extraction, meaning that I have to convince you to do something that you otherwise would not do for my gain. And so then I'm using techniques and tactics to get you to, and even a funnel, that's what it's called, putting you in a funnel that's designed to get you to do a certain action. And understanding human behavior, it may take 6 or 7 times of talking to you to get you to do that action. And what I've learned is that you either invite someone to do something with you. When they see the value, then you can invite them to say, here's how you can begin to work with me. And that becomes a win-win. And then it's not an extraction. It's an increase for them and it's an increase for you. And you both recognize the mutual value and now co-creating together. That became the goal for 180 days. And that was a challenge. Because I had never in my life gone without trying to sell. Or how was I going to survive?
How does a salesman stop selling, guys? Both of you.
Well, the truth is we're all salesmen.
We're all salesmen.
Yeah,
but it's been like, this has been the reflection I've been receiving from King when you ask that question, how do we get to 500 hertz? And I keep getting this reflection back from King as I'm also in the journey. And it's like, stop the behavior of extraction. If you're not uplifting, if you're not increasing, you're decreasing.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, and that's to that point, Mike, I wanted to show you this real quick before I give you a chance to respond to that. So this is David Hawkins' map of consciousness.
Right.
And you see from here, you start off with shame, guilt, anger. They're low vibrational thoughts, 20, 30, 50, 70. And I equate this to also being in your shadow fully. Like your shadow is your dominant personality when you're in this type of thinking here. And that's what's dangerous, that a person can do some things here. And that's where your regret's going to come from. Mm-hmm. And as you see, you move up desire, anger, and pride at 175. It's not until you get the courage and willingness when you're actually at 350 and you're in a power level that he calls, which is a whole other conversation, is the difference between force and power. And just quickly, I'll make that example, what he means by that. You look at someone like our current president, he's forcing you to comply with what he wants. Where power is where someone like Nelson Mandela did, where you follow him because he sees, to what Mike said, you find something in him that you want to be like. And that's power that the person has. You want to follow them. So that's his distinction in that. Force weak is destructive and is weak, where power is strong and is creative. So that's kind of how he's breaking it down. And you see here, love energy is here at 500 hertz. So now getting there authentically was a challenge. And to your question, Jess, that's where I believe the higher purpose serving is the next pillar that we look at, because I had to serve my way to 500. I can't just wish my way to 500. It had to be, because the universe doesn't understand those kind of things that Mike talks about. He talks about the creation frequency. And that's also, Mike, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk about this, because this is something I had to learn and wrestle with, was most people who try to manifest are manifesting, and I was as well, with a lack consciousness, but then you're trying to manifest abundance. And then you wonder why it's not manifesting for you. And that's where I loved about your book, Creation Frequency, is because it gave me practical ways to really go deep inside and do introspective analysis of myself to realize what I must do to actually manifest, not just wishing for these things, but first becoming, as we talk about becoming fully human.
Yeah, because you got to feel that abundance. Whether you can feel anything, you can create any feeling you want with your thoughts, right? And so, but if your thoughts are constantly from lack, you're going to vibrate at a frequency of lack. So how do you change that? You just change your thoughts that I am abundant. And you can always find something that you're abundant about. Okay. There's something in everybody's life that there's abundance. Okay. And so you have to tap into that and just keep expanding that, feeling it. And when you feel it, then you start to believe it, then you start to know it, and then you're vibrating that frequency. You know, there's all the sayings, right? Fake it till you make it. You know, I mean, I used to walk into places like I owned them, right? You know, because that was my mindset, you know, that I have this ability, this power to vibrate at this frequency where I belong. And it's really just that simple. And it's a belief system. And then that creates these chemicals into the body. And now you get this feeling, and then it becomes a reality. But we have to get there. And we have to get there by changing our thoughts, and then taking these thoughts and then becoming a feeling, an emotion, and then just vibrating at that. Now, the problem with people, we live in a microwave society today. So everybody, and it's even worse now, because now we don't even have to get out of bed and go get in the car and go get something to eat. We can have DoorDash delivered. So everything is like this right now. But when it comes to this manifestation part, you got to stay with it. You know, I was working with someone that wanted to manifest a love, a woman wanted to manifest a relationship with a guy. Okay. And so we write this intention, and after a week, this doesn't work. I mean, after a week, you know, so we have to realize that, you know, we're planting seeds into the field of infinite possibilities, and then it's going to take a little time, but the more we can water that seed, the more sun we can give that seed, and the more feeling that we can give that and bring coming from the heart. The heart is the magnet that will bring it back to you. But we have to get out of our own way. Okay. It starts with a thought, but then it goes to the heart and the feeling. And that's the superpower. That's the magnet. This is the electrical charge that goes into the field, but this is a magnet that brings it back to you.
That's right. I remember when we were at Mountains of Hope and doing this exercise that you had like a wheel, and then there were these different areas where you could have the feeling so that you can create a balance of what you're manifesting, right?
Hey, if without balance, I can create all the money in the world. I can become the rich, but if I don't take care of my health, or if I don't take care of my family, for example, while we were sitting here, I'm sitting here, this beautiful girl walks across the street, right? And I'm going, wow, who is that? Well, it's my granddaughter. And that just gives me, and so I text her, good morning, right? But that gives me such a great feeling to have a family that I can love. And so now I'm in a state of gratitude right now to have this beautiful young granddaughter that I get to watch grow and evolve, and, you know, all my other grandkids. And so that's the real, instead of chasing a bunch of money or a bunch of fame or a bunch of power, I'd rather just experience that beauty, that love, that joy, that feeling of family.
Absolutely. And see, to me, Mike, you also exhibited, and as well as you, Jess, the third pillar, purpose and serving. That's why I said, to me, you all exhibit the fully human characteristics, whether you use that title or not. Your behavior characteristics are in line with these pillars. And I think about how, again, Mike, your journey about, I mean, you created Mountains of Hope out of your love for Margot and your willingness to say, I want to help other people not have to go through this. And even before you got to Mountains of Hope, you were serving, and you've been serving pretty much in your life. Like you said, you even created your dealerships and created a culture of serving so that your salespeople treat the customers with respect and gave them value.
Exactly.
And I remember, and I'm sure you've heard this expression as well, Mike, everybody hates being sold, but everybody loves buying, right? So the trick is not selling, but inviting someone into an opportunity.
Exactly.
And the more you do it authentically. Now that's where you and I have been building for over a year now. Mike, Jess and I were just talking about this. It was almost a year ago that we were at Mountains of Hope. It just seems like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
So, and I said Mountains of Hope is the only place that I've been to in my life that I thought about getting back to pretty much every day. Now there's places I want to go back to that I've been to that I love, that were beautiful places. but I don't think about them daily with the intent to go back there. And see, that's because of the intentionality that you set forth and the way I felt served at Mountains of Hope and your purpose behind that. And to me, that purpose in serving is, I believe, the cheat code to help us become more fully human. And we can feel that and sense that with people who are genuine about that service in their heart. It's something that we feel like I often use this example when I talk about social capital. And I want to give you all opportunity to respond to the higher purpose in serving once I'm finished, is that if you serve enough, if Gandhi was still alive today, and he wanted to come to America, do you believe he would have to pay for a hotel or even pay for his flight or even pay for any of his food? Like, people would be honored to carry that whole, he would probably stay in the White House depending on who was the president. So he would be treated carte blanche the entire time, even though that's not what he's seeking at all. But people constantly offer him that because that's the value he brings to people's lives. And that's where I see you all. And that's why I felt that you, Jess, Mike, and Rachel are the four pillars of myself of the Fully Human framework. Because we're showing how you can have grief and gratitude simultaneously. And you can find gold, as you say, Jess, gold in your shadow. You can find these things. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk about it, you both, on this as we begin to get at top of the hour.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting, this call. I feel like I've been in a technical black hole. I just keep, my internet just keeps slipping me out. And I feel like it's very consistent with what I was experiencing when I went to Mountains of Hope. I was following a friend who was falling into her own black hole, which looked like the end of her life with a medical crisis. And, if I were to create from lack, or like what you said in the manifestation, if I were to look at that like something's wrong, I could completely drop out of this conversation because I'm frustrated. I could just give up. I could come in a panic, and all those same things exist when it comes to someone nearing or someone going through a crisis. We can go into the panic of it and fight it, or we can surrender into it and open up inside of it. And that's the gold, is the continuous process of coming back to self and that self-awareness. And I know for myself, when I came to Mountains of Hope, what makes it distinct from wanting to go back to some other vacation land is it's not a vacation at all. It's a healing center, intentionally so. And as I stepped into it and knowing I was going to be in the black hole and that I could very well manifest from lack and having a problem and trying to fix, but I wasn't about that. I was actually more about sitting in the silence and being the observer so that I could receive. And I think that's this part that we forget about in manifestation, is that if I'm not open to receiving, then how will I serve? And so from that space, I really stepped into my regulation rhythm of I'm going to receive, and I'm going to step into my frequency being in alignment before I serve anyone else. And that was a paradigm shift for me. I'm complete. That was my paradigm shift.
Lovely. What are your thoughts, Mike? How do you feel about purpose and serving from your perspective? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Mike, your mute's on.
I have someone pounding nails in the room next door. So for me, it's just part of who I am. It's something that I enjoy. I don't know why. I suspect it's because of my mother and the way I was raised. But I've always had a heart for others, and some of it might be Catholic guilt where you sacrifice for others. But for me, I get fulfillment out of that. And Margot, frankly, just taught me about love. But it was really the women from the Love for Margot Foundation that I formed after her death that gave me the courage to create Mountains of Hope. After watching them go through, these are women below the poverty line, mostly minorities in Oakland and in Southern California, and watching them go through this terrible cancer treatment and this cancer diagnosis, watching their courage gave me the courage to step out of my comfort zone and go to Colombia and build Mountains of Hope. And so that was really the motivation. And then now that it's built and it's created and people come there and they heal, I mean, like you guys were saying, it's not a vacation spot. It's a place for healing, but more importantly, it's a place to reconnect with who you really are.
There it is.
And I credit that to the nature. I mean, everything we've done there is to coincide with the nature. And I think it's through the nature we connect to our source, which I call God. And that's where we find ourselves. And that's where we find the peace that passes all understanding. So I think that should be the future of hospitals, that kind of environment of nature, of sunshine, of good nutrition, of good water. The body will heal itself in the right environment. It's the environment that's making all of our bodies sick. And so, it's so toxic now, it's going to be very, very difficult to clean this up. But places like Mountains of Hope, you can go where it is clean. It's not toxic. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it's all non-toxic. And you connect to your heart and your soul and your essence and your source. And I believe not everybody's going to cure. Nobody's going to stay in this body forever. We're all going to leave, right? So, but we can heal anytime, and that healing will go with us. Okay, the body's not going with us. That I can promise you. Okay, but the spirit, nothing like a healed spirit and a clean soul. I've come to believe that the soul is just a scorecard now, and the cleaner our life, and the cleaner our intentions. And the more we do to serve others, the brighter that our soul will shine. And then that's our light. And then just the opposite is true too. The more evil we do, the more darkness we do, then the soul becomes dark. And that's not a good place to go for when we leave this body. You want to go where it's light and bright and light and free.
Yeah.
Mike, what's interesting is that your analogy of the soul is similar to mine. Like, I come to believe that the soul is a mirror and shows your actions since you've been created, since your essence. What you manifest is the mirror that your soul produces. And it's showing you through your actions what manifests in your life, what you've created. And you have to go through life to remember how to align yourself back with the righteousness. And when you do, you start to see, and that's what I'm experiencing. I'm not just saying this from a context of intellectually understanding. I'm saying this from a context of over 6 months being able to sit here and build this entirely new life. Like now, 90% of conversations that I have on a weekly basis are about love and service. And 10% are arguing with my family who are now vibrating on their level. And I have to accept them for where they are. And I'm satisfied with the 90% because that's a huge shift prior to coming to Mountains of Hope. And so, Mike, it was not only have my desire been to get back to physically Mountains of Hope since I left at the end of September, but Mountains of Hope now has become symbolic in the context that it's a space in my mind to heal. So now I'm metaphorically getting back to Mountains of Hope every single day when I go through my regenerative energy that you talk about, Jess, and I go through centering myself. I get out in nature, and I just want to wrap up with this and give you an opportunity to say your last thoughts. That, again, Mike, I think you would have been, if you were born a century or two earlier, you'd have been a transcendentalist. Still saying that wrong. But Thoreau talked about, if you really want to learn about who you are in life, go out in nature. Nature is the best teacher. And Mike, you provided that with Mountains of Hope. So as we get to wrap up, we're going to do the other 3 pillars in our next segment next week. But as we begin to wrap up the show, what are your thoughts about today's conversation or anything that's in your heart that you want to leave with our listening audience before we wrap up today?
Go ahead, Jess.
Well, I'm just inspired that every human has the potential to create the thoughts, the environment, and the life that they choose. And so it just feels like a liberating conversation. And for anyone who's, stuck in an environment and an identity and feeling a victim of that, just know that there is a path. There's a path beyond that through a storm of wreckage.
Yeah, and I would add to that, because I'm sure there's so many people that have problems or think they have problems. There's so many people that are suffering and think have something to suffer about, right? But in spite of all that, you can always find freedom. You can always find peace. You can always find joy. It's just a decision. And you have to just say, hey, in spite of all this stuff going on, I'm going to tap into what's beautiful in this moment. Okay. I realize that there's this illness over here, or this job loss over here, or I can't pay my bills over here. I get all that. Okay. But in spite of all that, okay, you can still arise above that. And by rising above it, you're going to become so much more powerful than complaining about it or being fearful of it or worrying about it. So yeah, that stuff exists, but I'm going to rise above it and I'm going to find a way to fix it. We need to become powerful creators. And I see way too many people that are victims, and they're just freaking lost because the world is so confusing right now. I mean, everybody's walking around looking at these darn things, right? And there's a whole world out here. And this can be a tool for good, but we have to just limit the use of that, okay? And really get into our heart and get into nature and get into our relationships. My fear for this is who has relationships anymore, right? Who sits down and talk? I've been watching this show, I think it's called 1884 or 94, I don't know what it is. But it's about the Wild West, right? And I'm thinking, well, where did they find time to do all this? Well, guess what? They weren't wasting their time with this bullshit. They were working on surviving. Okay. So they had time to braid their hair. They had time to sew their clothes. They had time to sit around the campfire and talk because there was nothing else to do. There was no TV to watch. There was no internet. So they had to talk and form relationships, and they were strong. And the land made them strong. And that's the whole purpose of this thing, is to become stronger. I'm getting older now, right? I don't like it because I don't feel old. I don't think I'm old, but the reality is I'm getting older. But I refuse to get old. Okay. I'm going to stay young no matter what that takes. And I'm not going to get an old mindset. And I'm going to stay youthful no matter what happens to my physical. Right? Because it's a mindset, and everything is a mindset. And that's the other beautiful thing that we do at Mountains of Hope. We talk a lot about mindset. And if you get the mindset right, okay, and the belief systems right, then everything else will flow. But we got to get out of our own way. And most of us, 90% of all our problems, we create ourselves. We create with bad thinking or bad eating or bad action. And then when we can fix that, if we eliminate that, then this becomes much easier to navigate.
Absolutely. And I want to close on this point by saying that Jess and I was having a meeting earlier today, and we were literally creating a presentation because of the people we want to invite to share Mountains of Hope experience. And I equate it to, really, when someone asks, explain the Mountains of Hope to me, and we can say all the things that's on the brochure and things, but it's almost like describing what water feels like. Mm-hmm. Someone says, tell me how it feels. How does water feel? Who's never experienced water? Where do you start, right? Because at the end of the day, you're describing how something that metabolically your body was in alignment with and felt, and you have, because our bodies are 90% water, more than 90% water. And so that's the challenge. But we are in a position where we get an opportunity, Mike, to bring people who are a part of our tribe that we're building. We call it the Love Energy Tribe, of individuals who are behaving as fully humans, have a higher purpose, have service mentality, and exhibit the other 6 pillars of being fully human. And we get an opportunity to break bread with them in a healing place that transforms Jess and myself. And again, that's something that we're grateful for you for allowing us to come there and experience that. And what's most grateful that I am is not that we can have that there at Mountains of Hope, but that you're also a part of it. And that we get experience a chance with hopefully Rachel. She says she's going to work to come. And now everybody we've been building with over this last year get a chance to, a year later, 12 months later, start this whole cycle all over again and build this new movement we're building. So that's where we're working towards. So as we become more fully human, which is our other podcast we build on, I want everybody to continue to look for ways, as Mike talks about, and just serving, reprogram your mind, getting out of your head, and get out in nature. If you can do those 4 things until next week, we look forward to building with you. Until then, let's all continue to find more ways to become more fully human. Thank you.
Thank you.
Race is a lie, a ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct. Yeah, yeah. It started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. He didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race. So stop fighting your father and dismantle the disease. If a lawyer wrote the code, the architect holds the key.